thank you everyone for joining us today. I am Kimberly Wickert, the Director of Organizational Partnerships at Retain Kentucky at the Human Development Institute at the University of Kentucky. And my visual description is a white female with blonde shoulder-length hair and glasses, and I am wearing a blue and white polka dot shirt with a black cardigan over it. And we will go ahead and do just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. So the information that's contained in this presentation is intended for informational purposes only and may not reflect the views or opinions of the University of Kentucky Human Development Institute or its individual employees. Although we attempt to provide accessible, accurate, and current information, no guarantees are made to that effect. And I also want to invite you to our Employment First and Retain Kentucky seminar series for next month, when we will have employment issues facing workers with disabilities with criminal justice system involvement. And backed by popular demand is Dr. Phil Rumroll and Dr. Chelsea Bremer is going to be joining him and share their expertise on this topic. It will be on September 25th from noon to 12:45, and I put that information as well as the link to join us in the chat. We will be monitoring the question and answer and chat today. So if you have any questions, feel free to put those in there. We will also be uploading this webinar on our Retain Kentucky Media website and be sending out certificates of attendance to those who have joined us today within a week of today. So today we are going to talk about employers as change agents and innovative ways to do so. And so I'm going to share a little bit with you about Retain referrals, and also another objective that we're going to talk about are hearing inclusive strategies to help support workers to become an inclusive employer. Just a reminder that Retain Kentucky eligibility criteria is that an individual must be a Kentucky resident, must be currently employed or have worked in the last 12 months, and their injury or reason for their inability to work must not be work-related. And there are several ways that someone can be referred to us, and those are also in the chat. So they can call, email, visit our Retain website, or use our participant screener. Now that I got all those housekeeping items out of the way, I am so excited to have Sherry Glenn join us today. She is the Diversity and Inclusion Specialist at Brown-Forman, and she has dedicated a decade of service to Brown-Forman, where she serves as the Diversity and Inclusion Specialist. And her diverse experience within the sales organization led her to find her true passion in promoting diversity and inclusion. She is pivotal as a co-lead of Brown-Forman's 10th Employee Resource Group, Awareness and Advocacy of Visible and Invisible Disabilities and Differences, which she helped to launch globally. Her commitment to this cause was recently showcased when she represented Brown-Forman and AVID on a distinguished panel discussing empowering dyslexic thinking in Kentuckiana. Additionally, she was a keynote speaker at the annual employer luncheon for the Coalition for Workforce Diversity in Louisville, where she presented Brown-Forman's partnership with Edge Employment and the importance of hiring individuals with disabilities. And I was fortunate enough to be able to see that, and with the help of our Employment First committee and Mary Reed from EDGE, we invited Sherry to join us today. So you all will get to hear that as well. Before joining Brown-Forman, Sherry served as the office manager for the American Sign Language Interpreting Studies program at the University of Louisville. And in this role, she developed a keen sensitivity to diverse cultures and co-authored an article on inclusivity for KY Sherm magazine. Currently, she is pursuing a second bachelor's degree in American Sign Language Interpreting Studies and her National Interpreter certification, furthering her commitment to accessibility. She also worked as an executive assistant at Yum Brands for 6 years in the Total Rewards Department, supporting compensation, benefits, and wellness programs, where she coordinated the World Hunger fundraising event in partnership with Wellington Elementary School and was featured in a book entitled Changing the World on Tuesday Night by Tammy DeVille. Engaging across various employee resource groups at Brown-Forman, Sherry actively contributes to GROW, COPA, East, Spirit, and Build, where she co-led initiatives for Black History Month and played a vital role as a communication, membership, and marketing liaison, fostering cohesion and engagement within the group. Before the transition to AVID, Sherry was an active participant in CARE, championing accessibility through reception and empowerment, Brown-Forman's Disability Council. As a dedicated manager or member, she initiated the Deaf Initiative to cultivate awareness within the company. Her efforts included organizing a deaf tour, facilitating deaf culture classes led by members of the deaf community, conducting a deaf etiquette session with the hiring team, and offering American Sign Language classes to employees. Notably, Brown-Forman welcomed its first deaf employee during this period. And as a result of these initiatives, Brown-Forman received the prestigious Outstanding Employer of the Year award from the Southeast Regional Institute on Deafness, recognizing the company's exceptional commitment to recruiting and hiring individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind. These early endeavors laid the groundwork for the establishment of AVID. In her continued dedication to diversity and inclusion, she remains an inspiring force for positive change within the Brown-Forman and broader community. She is a graduate of Sullivan University with a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in management, and resides in Louisville, Kentucky, with her husband, Philip, who is a systems engineer, also at Brown-Forman. So with that, Sherry, I would like to say thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today and talking about all of these wonderful things that you have done and are continuing to do to become a change agent in inclusivity. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. I'm so glad we were able to connect. And just to kind of introduce myself visually, I am a Black female. I have braids that are up in a bun, and I have on a blue top today, navy blue top, and some nice dangling Black earrings. So that's just a brief description of myself, visual description of myself. So let's get into it. Just a little bit, Brown-Forman has been on a journey for quite some time now, and our ERG journey officially kicked off in 2009. So our ERGs, we have 4 that are celebrating 15 years this year. So we're excited about that specifically. And a little bit about AVID, our awareness and advocacy of visible and invisible disabilities. It launched this year, this January, and this has been a part of the work that I've been doing over my 10 years at Brown-Forman. We started off as the Disability Council, and we then changed over into CARES Committee, and we were able to function as an ERG. And we had 10 members in the beginning, and then we went to 60, and now we have 200 plus members, and we were the first ERG to kind of launch globally. So we feel that AVID, stretches across the board globally in the US as well. So we, as AVID, our mission is we will partner with the organization to advance an even more inclusive culture for employees and their families who identify as having either visible or invisible disabilities or act as caregivers by sharing intelligence and best practices we will help to foster an environment where employees with disabilities can bring their best self to work. So that's just a little bit about our employee resource groups and specifically around Abbott. We can go to the next slide. And so today, what I want to talk about is a little bit of our partnership with Edge Employment. Brown-Forman and Edge became one specifically in partnership because of our former Chief Diversity Officer introduced us to Edge Employment. And we began to work together and figure out what would it look like to have someone with a disability in the workplace, whether visible or invisible. And yeah, you can go on to the next slide. So just a little bit about the background of that. We decided to work together and look at what is it that Brown-Forman can do to be even more inclusive. So in our partnership with Edge Employment, they were looking to put together customized employment and really look at what is the need within Brown-Forman. What can they come in and look at and see, okay, this is different areas that could use someone to work in this space, that particularly that someone like me could hand that over, whether it's faxing, copying, whatever it may be, then we can bring someone in. And so Edge Employment, they pursue large corporations and along with small businesses as well. But they look at this customized employment as an opportunity to come in and start to fit those with disabilities in the spaces. We had some different processes as well. So Brown-Forman specifically looks at, we have our reserve power temp pool. And so how we started off specifically is we looked at our HR department, we talked to HR legal, we talked to different ones within the organization. Personally, for myself, I didn't know who to talk to. I just went out and started having conversations. And so a lot of times what happens is you'll have these conversations and someone will pinpoint you to the right direction. So I was looking at, okay, who can we talk to in HR legal, or possibly recruiting? And so we looked at our reserve power temp pool and we started working with our recruiter partners and said, what can we do to make Brown-Forman more inclusive in this space of disability? So they said, let's start off with reserve power, our temp pool, and bring someone in a temporary role, and we'll look at the department needs and see what, potentially we could get from there. And so we started to evaluate different spaces and looking at different things and said, okay, so let's start off something small, and we'll start with mailing benefits package. So it just happened to be a great time at that particular time that they were sending out letters to retirees. So with Edge Employment, normally they look at the roles and the task before someone starts a job, but they were willing to work with us and us saying, here is the actual department need, rather than them coming in to determine the department need. And it was a little different for their processes, but they were willing to work with us because they were looking at, this is a great opportunity to put someone into this space, to get someone working regularly in a corporate setting. So we were both kind of flexing and how they would normally do their processes versus how Brown-Forman works with our reserve power temp pool. So
well,
we
this is one of, sorry. I was just going to say, this is one of the areas where, we talk about innovative strategies, and really this jumped out at me. You at Brown-Forman were being innovative by bringing people in through that reserve power temporary pool, and also looking at tasks, and then Edge Employment partnering with somebody who was also willing to be flexible and maybe do things a little bit differently, is very innovative. So I just want to kind of call out that that's one way that you out of the gate were a change agent.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kimberly. That is a great point. Because again, I think about some of the opportunities and the challenges that we were facing. And it was really about who needs to be at the table, who needs to be a part of the conversation when we have the conversation around being more inclusive. So that piece right there is very, very important. And I encourage, if you are the person that's looking to implement more inclusion in their workplace, is to continue to have the conversations. And you may not know right off who within your corporation you need to have the conversation with, but you start off small, just like I did, and we continue to have those conversations. So I think on the next slide. So yeah, so we go into meeting with, we met in the middle, and we have Graham. So Graham was our first person that we brought in through Edge Employment. And I have a great video at the end of this to just to kind of highlight Graham and some more stories to share in regards to Graham. So when we look at the opportunities for Graham, in those opportunities, he worked in several different roles, right? So he started off as stuffing mailers for benefits, and then he went into assembling table tents, and then organizing different assets for our emerging brands team, and then sorting mail and invoices in accounting. But when we found the niche, this is the thing, he loves hospitality and he loves working in this space. So now he is managing reservations for hospitality at our Bourbon Street Cafe. And he's also worked in our coffee shop. And every day, Graham is just like, when he comes into to work, he's just so excited. And we're excited to see him. And he's working in his space. And so one of the things that happens when we have these opportunities with Edge Employment, they have their support team that comes in with those that are working in the space. And so Graham has his support team that comes in and they help train him, any accommodations he may need. They work with him and they will see, his progress. And then over time, they start the leave method where they start to not be there every day. And so once he's settled in the role and he's been in, and it could take, a month or two. And so we also, as employees, get used to seeing the Edge Employment support team as well. And of course, with these opportunities also comes some challenges, right? So here are just a few of the challenges that we experienced. So for me, as a Brown-Forman employee, it's the cross-departmental coordination. And that goes back to understanding, who should be at the table, who should be a part of the conversation. You actually are starting from scratch. And I was starting from scratch. You have to find those advocates that have authority to see the project through some of the roadblocks that you may experience. Someone who cares, they may not have the power to make the final decision, but they can lead you to the person that can help make that final decision on how to start that partnership. So you start to just engage those that have the authority, and you don't know what's going to happen. So that leaves you with the uncertainty, right? So with Edge Employment, it really went away from their normal process of how they operate, of coming in, looking at doing a customized, benefit, like understanding what that department needs. So it took them away from their normal process. But working with Reserve Power, we were able to come together and put the time in. Now, normally for Edge Employment, the investment in time is not as long, but because we were changing different roles for Graham and putting Graham in different places, it was typically a little bit longer for them to come in and train for each new role that he went into. But they were willing to work with us so that we could be more inclusive in this space. So you see how the partnership kind of comes together. They we're not sure specifically if a temporary employee and how it will lead to a permanent position. We're still kind of looking at that and what that would look like going forward. But in the end, Graham has this position and he has been very successful in his role, for himself personally, in his own personal life, and also in his own professional life. So just to
And
talk about, go ahead.
I was just going to say another strategy that I felt was really innovative on your part at Brown Forman was, first of all, cross-departmental coordination. Whenever you can do that, you're going to open up opportunities for an employee, whether it's Graham, who is coming into work as a new employee, or I've also seen in transitional work programs where they go cross department to find transitional duty jobs for somebody who may be coming back to work following an illness or an injury. And the thing that I loved when I first saw your uh, presentation was how you broke down the tasks. And I think sometimes as employers and workforce professionals, we think we have to have this job all wrapped up with a bow that we can present to somebody. And really going at it the way you all did by identifying tasks that then you can kind of allow an employee to try out. Or I've also seen, again, back to the transitional work example, where they'll put multiple tasks together to then create an 8-hour job, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, whatever that person, is coming back to work. And so I just wanted to highlight that as an innovative strategy that you did at Brown Forman, and that other employers and workforce professionals like Edge Employment and other people who are in this webinar can help employers develop by just starting with one task and building on that. So again, congratulations and great, thinking outside of the box on that
Yes,
innovation.
absolutely. Thank you. I think about, in Graham's particular roles that he had, it was a lot of kind of putting things together that was also based on his schedule. And so we talked about what he was going to be able to do, whether it would be part-time, how many hours he would do doing his part-time shift, and how many days a week. And so we were also working with Edge Employment to make sure it made sense for Graham personally, and his ability of what he could be able to do throughout a week. So very point on. And so now I want to talk just a little bit about the rewards. Specifically for Graham, he is proud of his job and he loves his team. He loves being able to, when he finishes the day, they all have lunch together and he's building relationships. And the challenge of this role has stretched his skill set and his independence. And so if I can, I would just want to share just a little bit. I'm on the board for Mattingly Edge, which is the parent company for Edge Employment. And his mother is also a part of the board. And she came to me and she said to me specifically, Sherry, I just really, really love that Brown Forman and what Edge Employment has done for Graham. He had just been tested intellectually, and they had said he had went up 6 points, and they really believe, his doctor said he believes that it's because he has been more independent and he has been challenged and his skill set has been stretched in the workplace. And so to know that Brown Forman is a part of Graham's story, it's even more, it just means even more, right? And for Graham, around financial stability, he just recently purchased his own home. So that part as well is just like amazing to me to know that he can come into the workplace, love the place he works, and he's been challenged and he's been stretched and he's grown personally, professionally, and he has his own home now. So that was just like amazing to me to hear from him. And then for Brown Forman alone, it's a part of our D&I strategy, and it really put our D&I strategy into action. we have four strategic, pillars and frame of our framework around colleagues, culture, consumers, and community. And this really shows that we have taken our strategic framework and we have put it into practice, right? Our colleagues and how we're growing and hiring and attracting and retaining a diverse workforce. Our culture, this is building our inclusive culture. Our consumers, attracting diverse brand consumers as well. Our community, being a good neighbor to our community and within the industry and the supplier work. All of this is just the rewards that we're seeing on the Brown-Forman side. And we're expanding, and our employees appreciate the shift. They love coming in and they love seeing Graham. And, our goal is that we continue to expand, not just to have Graham, but more, right? And so for Edge Employment, it's they say to me all the time, oh, we have Brown-Forman, and we have just utilized the fact that we have partnered with such a great company and a large company, and they're looking at opportunities to diversify among other departments within the organization. And so now the director at Edge Employment is working with other departments and having meetings within other departments to share how, Graham's story, but then at the same time, look at, like, can we come in and do, a needs analysis and really look at your department and see what other areas you may be able to bring someone in. And we, Edge Employment has the clientele for that. So we're looking for even more opportunity to do even more to create an even better culture at Brown-Forman.
That's so exciting. And thank you for sharing this today. And I'm going to move to the next slide, and I will put Sherry's email in the chat as well. I know you had one person in particular who wants to connect with you, so I will put that in. And I think, Sherry, I'm going to stop sharing if you want to share so that we can hear from Graham himself.
Absolutely. Let me get that up.
I was glad working at Brown-Forman, but it didn't was it was best. But I loved it. My coworkers really cool. The bird and the bear and the people. Brown-Forman is a great place to live.
So that's just a short video of Graham that his support specialist put together for him from Edge Employment. And I just wanted to share that with you all, for him speaking for himself to say that he is just, he just loves to work at Brown-Forman and he's doing so well.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think you probably touched on these, but we did have a few questions that came in when people registered. And one of them is, in your opinion, what's the most efficient and effective way to help other employers get this message, of inclusivity and being a change agent and looking at innovative ways to hire people?
I think about something that we say often within Avid is, anyone can become a part of this group at any time in their life, whether it's invisible or visible disability. So you think about for yourself, when you go to work, you want to be able to bring your whole self to work. And so when I think about how to share this with employers, it's that reality to know that this could be me, my family member. It can be someone that's a caregiver of a family. You just never know. And so a lot of times it's really taking that step back to say, this could span across any part of my family at any time, and it could be me. And I want to be able to go to work. I want to be able to be independent. I want to be able to bring my full self to work. And how can I do that if my employer is not inclusive? And so when I think about that piece, that plays a big role. And I think for me, the passion around it has always been, being able to have that conversation and just say, hey, I'm just going to keep going and talking to whoever I need to talk to until we figure it out. And then I get someone on board with me that's going to help me and show me and may have some more, opportunities that I do to get the right people in the space. I didn't know initially when I started having the conversation, my first words were, how can I make Brown Forman more deaf friendly? That was my first initiative. And it was the chief diversity officer that said, join the disability council. So I said, okay. So sitting at the table of 10 people, and everyone had a different invisible or visible disability that they were sharing, and said, let's have all these different ways that we can, start to make people aware, and, around autism, about neurodiversity, about ADHD. And I went, oh, it's bigger than what I know around the deaf community. I need to learn more. So it's just that initial meeting. I'll never forget it, sitting at the table and having that conversation. I was like, it's bigger than this. There's so much more. And even my colleague that was leading AVID with me, he has since retired, around mental health. And we started just talking about all these different ways of how to educate our employees and bring awareness. And it's simple communications. We have something set up at Brown Forman called Chatter that's very similar to like our internal Facebook, basically. And we share, like, today is, National American Sign Language Day. So let's share, here's the history of Deaf History Month. Here's the history of, the new museum that's gonna be set up at the American Printing House, the Dot. Like sharing those type of things, and people are just not aware. They don't know what they don't know. So when you start to share it that way, and that's very small. We started off small like that, and then it was just like, let's start to educate more. Like, what can we do around International Day of Persons with Disabilities? Let's highlight someone. Let's talk about how we can bring in partners from the community and set up a fair. That's what we did. We set up a fair. We had the employees attend the fair during lunchtime. And then I created a space called the Deaf World. And you had to enter the room, and in order to communicate, you had to sign, or you had to lip read, or you had to write. You bring those type of things to the workplace, and then it's like, oh, we need this. So that's just, these are just some of the examples and methods and ways that I just kind of pursued it and went in that direction.
Those are great examples. And I think you answered really all the other questions that we had. One was, addressing hiring people who are deaf, and you gave several examples of things that you implemented at Brown Forman. One of the other questions are, what are employers doing to overcome the stigma employees with disabilities face at work? And I think, just hearing you talk about Graham and him having lunch with his team, and, having that camaraderie probably helps with that. Are there other examples that you can think of that can help with kind of overcoming those stigmas that people may have in the workplace?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is being able to share your story, right? Being open and transparent. That's one of the things that we do specifically within AVID, and we were doing before we were AVID, is sharing our stories around mental health, being open, because I think what that does is it builds relationships, but it also sets a space. There's some safety there, right? And there's trust. If someone else can open up and share, about mental health, about raising a child that's autistic, someone with dyslexic thinking. I realized that I'm a dyslexic thinker. After sitting on the panel, I was like, oh, this is me, and I'm okay with that. And I understand that I'm creative and I'm passionate and I'm a communicator and I'm a talker. So, but these type of things, it's like, how do you, when you start to know that about yourself and you're able to share that it brings other employees on to say, hey, that's me as well. And, I have a family member the same. And so I think that starts to remove some of that stigma because it creates a safe
Mhm.
space for others to share, and I think that's how you have to start internally, and then it starts to span outwardly.
Yeah, that's great and so insightful. And I love those examples. And because sharing stories, even if two people have the same disability or diagnosis, their experience could be vastly different, right? So like getting to hear what somebody's experience is, I think is a great way to overcome those stigmas. So great example. Thank you for sharing that. We did have one other request for statistics on supported employment. So I will follow up with that individual directly and do a little bit of research for you and get back to you on some of those statistics. I just wanted to let that person know. But thank you, Sherry, so much for sharing your the great things that you've done. And I know it's been over more than a decade that you've been working on this. So it definitely is a dedication and a passion, but it's employers like you that we are looking to lead us. So thank you for sharing. And I put your email in the chat. If anybody has any questions, they can reach out to you directly. But we appreciate your time today and everybody else's time joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I was able to share.